Well, today's video I thought I would try something a little unique. I would come up to this local mountain near my house that has all these wonderful sugi trees. This is Cryptomeria japonica. These trees are thought to be, well, in old times they thought they were thousands of years old, but recent research has shown most of them to be in the 300 to 400 year range. There's a few approaching 1,000, perhaps beyond that. Well, today's video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk around this forest and find different large trees to sit by and answer some of the questions that I've been getting from you all in the comments section. I try to keep up with those questions, and answering them as best I can, but the way that YouTube has it all set up, sometimes I'm not getting any alerts about them, or only half of them, and they're buried here and there. So I have to actually go to the video itself and then work down the list and look for replies and stuff like that. So if I miss one of your questions, don't take it personally. It's either because most likely I didn't see it, or I just haven't gotten to it yet. I've been real busy recently with university, trying to deal with these online courses amidst the pandemic shutdown. Anyway, today is mostly going to be about this, me hanging around big trees and answering questions. I am going to maybe visit a couple different plants along the way, at least a couple orchid species, and there's one little special plant that I'm going to go climb a cliff for you, small cliff, and hopefully it'll be in nice bloom so you can see it, but otherwise this is mostly going to be just a Q&A video. So I hope you enjoy it, and on to the next tree. Okay, so I'm up in this this magical little piece of forest here that I found a few years back. There's a backstory to this place, but I'd rather not go into it right now. Let's just say that it's an amazing little piece of forest. It gives you a good taste of the kind of forest that existed here prior to humans dominating this place. It's been messed with, it's been changed, but it also retains a lot of its original beauty, and I like to come here and just meditate and just be in this place and feel its energy. It's a pretty amazing place. Okay, so this is one of the big trees here. This is a tree that's multi-trunked. He's got a little hollow in the center there, and he did a kind of a secondary little trunk here that came off sometime later. The main trunk is over to the left here behind me. Okay, so next question. This is from Christopher Bollinger. Do you have any great floral or botany books you recommend for learning how to recognize what plants are what? And another gentleman that goes by the name of Nebuchadnezzar. Hopefully it's not the real Nebuchadnezzar. Do you have a university degree in biology or botany? Do you have any tips for learning or remembering families, genus, and scientific names of species? And this is a common question that is thrown past me quite a bit. I'm a guy who's really interested in plants, and for me, it's just a passion. It's something that started as a child. I grew up, looking back on it now, I was one of those kids who grew up in the 70s and, in paradise in America, basically. We didn't know what we had. I lived on an acre and a half of wooded land, and essentially my father had turned it into a botanical garden. And there was woodlands all around me, and I thought this was normal. And then I got out into the real world and found out what's actually going on, and of course things have progressed from there. Well, anyway, that's how I got my start in plants. And really, it's not just plants, it's nature in general, okay? And when I went off to university, I studied biology. But interestingly enough, I did not specifically study botany. I studied, in fact, zoology. And don't ask me the intelligence of that or the reasoning. There's probably no good reason or intelligent reason why I would have done that. So, yes and no. I have studied biology. I've worked in a microbiology lab for a while, working with algae, of all things, studying lake ecosystems in Florida. At that time, it was the 1980s, and eutrophication of those lakes was reaching ahead, and so there was quite a bit of money being offered up to researchers to study what was causing these algal blooms, which, by the way, largely was phosphorus. Was it phosphorus? Hold on. Not phosphorus. Probably nitrogen. Heck, I don't remember. That was a long time ago. Anyway, can I recommend you any good reference books? Not really, but I can offer you 2 YouTube channels that can give you quite a good view into botany and understanding plants a lot better, much more than you'll get from me. I'm a little too, out there, flitting around. There's 2 channels that come to mind. There is Crime Pays, but Botany doesn't. The gentleman there is Tony Santoro, I believe. He's a character, okay? So you're just going to have to, if you don't like his persona and what he projects, you're going to have to get past that because he doesn't hold back any punches. Basically, it's kind of like listening to a Chicago Italian crime boss, tell you about botany and geology and ecology. The guy is fascinating. He knows a ton of stuff, and he will take you on botanical tours that will blow your mind. He went to New Caledonia. He's been to Chile, Mexico, a lot of the western United States. He lives in the San Francisco area currently. He's from Chicago area originally, so he knows about that area as well. He's been in parts of the eastern United States. The guy knows his stuff. Anyway, check out his channel. I'll give you a link down below. I can't post it here because the YouTube won't let me, but I'll show it, the link down below if you want to see that. Another guy that I recommend is Matt Candias, I think is his name, and his channel is called In Defense of Plants. A much more average guy, kind of like me, very much more like being in a botany class in university when you're watching him. He seems to focus primarily in his Midwestern area where he's from, but he does take you out west and also down to the Appalachians. Regardless, the guy, again, really knows his stuff, and he's got a great blog that you really need to check out, too, and I'll put both of those links down to his channel and also to his blog below. So those are the 2 guys I would recommend the most. And I'll also put down under Tony's page, I'll show you another link to one of his videos where he gives you specific books that you should read about botany to get a general idea of what plant families are like and things like that. So really useful stuff. I think he has one probably on geology too. He's really into geology because geology, of course, is important. It affects what is growing in the environment, and so he touches on that as well. So those are guys that I would really recommend watching and reading their stuff if you want to learn more about biology and specifically botany and plants. So here's a tree I call the Black Rider tree because it reminds me of one of those trees out of Tolkien's novels along one of the roads that Frodo and his friends had to travel down. And I'm just waiting for a Black Rider to come running out at any moment here. These sugi trees are really quite amazing. Okay, so let's get to this next question. This is in reference to the Calypso bulbosa video I did a couple weeks back. It says, this is from, sorry if I mispronounce your name, Vinod Kumar. I know this gentleman. He's been commenting on my videos of recently. He's down in Malaysia, I believe. Were there any similarities between the species composition of this forest, meaning the Vancouver area, Vancouver Island area, and that of Fukuoka? Essentially none. There's almost no comparison at all. These conifer trees might give the impression that this is a similar forest to the Pacific Northwest, which is, you know, a lot of that forest is dominated by conifer trees, Douglas fir and western red cedar, Sitka spruce, stuff like that. These trees are designed for hot, humid summers. These are kind of totally different kind of tree. Anyway, and beyond that, this forest is actually mostly a broadleafed evergreen forest in truth. The reason you're seeing these cedar trees here is they were planted here, including this behemoth behind me here. He's not probably not seated in here by himself. He might have been, but more than likely at some point or another he was put here by human hands. So again, this forest is more in line with the tropical forest of South Asia rather than the temperate, even almost boreal forest of the coniferous northwest of the western United States. So a totally different forest. Well, here I am sitting under truly one of the largest trees in the forest. This thing is a monster. As you can see, he's got a big old cavern in here too, and you can actually climb through there. Anyway, on to the next question. Let's see, this one is from Maxime S. Hello, thank you very much for the great content and for uploading regular new videos. I really appreciate it. In the future, is it possible to see the Neophonetia falcata collection in detail? What Fukudan do you grow? How do you grow them? I already read the articles in your blog, but would be interested to see all that in a video, I think. Domo arigato. Yeah, I'll show you more about my Fukudan collection this summer. Actually, I'll fess up about it. It's not in that great a shape. I grew them really well for about 10 years. And then in the last 5 or 6 years, it's been kind of falling off. They're still doing well. I still get some good flowers. So I'll go ahead and show you those. I've been taking better care of them lately, so that should help. But yeah, anyway. And I have one other Fukudan related question here. Oh, actually, I have a piece of paper I printed out so I don't forget these things. This is from Peter J. Could you do a video of Neophonetia falcata in situ? I've seen all your videos and I don't think I saw one. You might have, in one video I showed a semi-wild one. I say semi-wild because it's growing up on a tree and apparently was not put there by human hands. So it's seeded in by itself, so I'm going to call that semi-natural. Um, this is a plant that has been pretty much removed completely from this area. I don't know in times past how common it was, but I've talked to a lot of the local folks that have been around for a long time collecting orchids, and they say that up into about, oh gosh, I guess it's been 30 years ago now, 25, 30 years ago, you could still find plants like the Neophonetia and the Dendrobium maniliforme, up in the local mountains, but in recent years, not so much because they've been collected out. In fact, whole collections were based just strictly on wild collected plants rather than anything cultivated. Of course, at that time, they didn't have the technology to do any of the in-lab type seed germination, things like that. So that's where they got their plants, from the wild, and basically they went whole hog and pretty much stripped out all these areas. So anyway, locally, not a very common species anymore. As I said, I've only really seen one sort of wild population. And in fact, my wife found it. It's a place where we go to this little creek by this shrine, and we sit there in the summertime and drink coffee and stick our feet in the water. And she came up and was like holding this little Neophonetia and bud. She's like, "Hey, what's this?" And I'm like, "Where'd you get that?" And then we looked up right above the tree, and there they all were in bloom. It was really funny. So, me, the great orchid hunter, and my wife finds it. Ah, well, better to have two sets of eyes than just one. So, let's see. Let's on to the next tree, or, ooh, no, something special. Well, this is a sugi tree that actually has been designated as a shrine. You can tell by this rope here. It's called a shimenawa. It protects a sacred space. And inside here, you can actually see there's a little tree spirit. Looks like a little tree princess. And a beautiful carving. Looks like it's made of ivory, in fact. Anyway, right down here, there is a cliff walk. And this will bring us to a special little treat, hopefully up on the cliff. And so let's go check that out. I might have to break out my action cam because it gets a little bit dicey in here. Well, unfortunately, this plant is just about out of bloom. I really wanted to show you a Shindon this year. I'll go ahead and put in some shots from last year of this same plant, see if they come out okay. Yeah, this thing lives up on this little rock face here, probably put here years ago by somebody, because this is a little shrine right behind me here. And you can see there's a lot of Selaginella tamaracina growing here on this rock too, probably naturally. Bummer. I really hope that we could see this. It does have a seed pot from last year, which is kind of cool. But yeah. Ah well, that's the way it goes. Okay, so here I am sitting at basically the top of the mountain here at about 670 meters elevation, so don't ask me what that is in feet. I'm guessing, say, 3 feet, I I don't know, 2,100, 2,200 feet, something like that. Anyway, last couple questions have to do with conservation in Japan. So this is a topic that I've kind of avoided because it's a sore spot with me. It has been since I was a kid. Humans do not treat other humans well often, and that goes with nature tenfold. And I'm not going to stop my commentary right there. Let me get to the questions. First question is from Martin Hild. Is there any monitoring program or protection initiative for native plants in Japan? Yeah, sure. I would say that there's a kind of a whole systems approach for particular sensitive areas, national parks in particular, of course. But you have to realize that a national park in Japan is not like a national park in America. It's a use park, right? So there's people actually living in the park oftentimes. There are core areas that people are not living. They're just like you would have in any other national park, say in America. But here, like for instance, if you go down to Aso, Kuju Aso, I guess, what's it called? Kuju Aso National Park, something like that. That whole Aso caldera is filled with towns, right, and agriculture and all the rest. So that's a quote-unquote national park, whatever you want to call that. So even the national parks are kind of different here. They also have these things called quasi-national parks, which are kind of like, pseudo-protected areas. They're protected in the sense that you can only carry on certain activities there, and construction is limited in those areas, but allowed, and there's lots of private ownership. As far as like wild plants and animals, specific programs for specific species is definitely occurring in the country. And then, of course, there's just forestry. Like most of the forests, they're being maintained for reasons of wood production. And I see a future where Japan's going to start using more of its own wood rather than bringing in foreign resources so much as it used to, which I don't know if that bodes well or not. It's a complicated subject. Let's just say this. Because Japan tried to modernize very quickly from the Meiji period onward, and in particular around the time of World War II and thereafter, the forests of Japan, and particularly Kyushu, got really nailed hard. Conservation efforts are definitely in place, but it's been spotty. As far as I know, what do I know? A related question, Linus Cello 75 says, what used to keep the deer population in check? Remember I told you about those deers eating all the Shindon and everything else. Wolves, hunters. I guess in times past there were wolves here and there were larger predators. But what I think what it really is more about, it's an issue of balance, right? So you have a situation now where all of the lowlands, basically all the desirable land, not just for humans, but for wildlife too, is being used by humans. And so the wildlife, in particular in this case deer, do not have good places to forage. If you think the side of a mountain, particularly in a plantation forest that has, relatively little undergrowth compared to, say, a native forest, if that's an ideal place for a deer to eat and make its living, you'd be wrong. So this is a real problem, So it's an issue of as much of an issue of management of humans as it is in human activities as it is of animals. And so, of course, that's the case around the world. So, whenever you get these human-animal interactions, the animal's always going to lose. And in this case, the animal loses. It goes up into the hills where it has no choice but to eat whatever the heck it can get its hands on. And then everything that's living in there is suffering. So this is a serious issue because this is going to impact the nature of the forests in the coming 100 years. I mean, some of the forests around here literally are going to degrade to the point of beyond hope, in my opinion, unless something is done to bring things into balance. So if that means removing deer and or giving them better habitat where they can live a better life, whatever, that's fine. But something needs to be done. Otherwise, it's a serious problem. And, a lot of different creatures are going to have trouble. Wow, I had a big crow here just fly. He scared me. He was sitting right on a branch. That's cool. All right, anyway, so I'm going to give you a little ending here, and then that'll be the end of the video. Well, I thought I'd go ahead and end this video here at this dramatic overlook on the other side of the mountain, looking down into the next valley and onto the city of, Zaifu way in the distance there. That's where a famous shrine is that I've taken you to a couple times. If you've seen my other videos on things like the Japanese irises and the, what else is there? Hold on. Ume. The Prunus Mume. Fine collection of those down there. As well as a lovely chrysanthemum Kiku festival in the fall. Anyway, here's a spot, one of the first spots that I ever came to in nature in Japan and was kind of bowled over. Of course, I know a lot more about this place now, and so what you're seeing with these videos is a real amalgamation of experiences that I've had through time. I have been here, since 2002. It's 2020 now, nearly 18 years. And so, that's you're getting all that experience. Anyway, I just thought this would be kind of a cool place to end. It's real pretty. And, yeah. We'll get over to those mountains again someday, and I'll show you some cool stuff over there. There's a holy mountain there, Homanzan, that has a lot of neat stuff. It's one of the last great repositories of truly wild vegetation in the Fukuoka area that hasn't, it's been messed with, but pretty intact. All right, anyway, I hope you enjoyed today's Q&A and a little bit of botanizing we did, and I'll see you in the next video.